Just live straight away. Good evening and welcome to Wild Ginger Running.
Welcome.
Of a Scotney takeover. Now, so we have a confession to make at the start of this podcast. Due to just family commitments, our guest is currently tied up, and not kind of physically tied up, but just tied up with looking after his son. So he's running a little bit late, but we thought we'd start, and if you're kind of sat there waiting, wondering when we're going to be starting, we thought we'd start now and hopefully bring our guest Marcus in.
Another Marcus,
not me, if they are able to kind of join us as and when. So we're going to maybe just start with our usual kind of friendly event. If this completely sounds like it's ad hoc, when yes, it is completely ad hoc, isn't it?
Yeah, let's just fill for when John Marcus comes. So, how are you?
I'm very good, Jen. How are you? Are you well? Are you keeping well? If you're joining us live, we will have Marcus Brown on very shortly, who's also known as the Marathon Marcus on Instagram, and he also has his own podcast and has an amazing kind of story of going from a 4-hour marathon runner, or even kind of slowing that, 4 hours 45 down to sub 3. And we've just had a notification on Skype that Marcus
is alive.
Is there, is saying hi. So we might kind of dialing. So you're probably going to hear a little bit of a kind of delay going on. Here we go. We've got a call coming in. So we're going to introduce Marcus straight away. This is not how we normally do things.
We are completely throwing him in at the deep end.
There we go.
Hi, Marcus.
Hey, Marcus.
Hiya. How you doing, right?
Yeah, we're live already.
We just went in, and then I just said we're going to throw you in at the deep end and bring you in live. So yeah.
Yeah, apologies for running late, but I think as all parents will kind of attest to, like, sometimes it's not as straightforward as putting your kids to bed and being a one.
Yeah. No, I mean, you don't.
Oh, yeah.
Please don't apologise. We appreciate you being able to come and join us.
You were single-handedly dealing with kids and bedtime and trying to come on and speak to us.
So let's bring you on to those who are joining us live on YouTube. Excellent. So Marcus Brown, how old is your kids? You
3.5 and 17 months.
Wow.
Oh, fantastic! Excellent. And
not at the age where you can just say go to bed now, like the teenage.
The oldest one is getting better at going to bed. You can say, like, go to bed. There's a no, then you put her down, and then she's asleep. The other one takes a little bit of maybe at work, but I mean, other parents have gone through the same type of thing, really. But they're asleep now. My wife is back. I think I've got backup, so all good to go.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. I kind of delving into all the plates that you're spinning. I do feel like you are so busy. I don't know where you find time. So you run your podcast, A Runner's Life, and you're up to nearly 100 episodes, or have you recorded your 100th episode?
I have done, but it's just not published yet, and I'm not quite sure which one's going to be the 100th yet. So I've got some really amazing people. I've had spoken to some amazing people, so I'm not quite sure what the 100th one will be, whether it'll be a new episode or maybe just a kind of like a mix of all the ones I've done before, because sometimes I feel like it's like an opportunity for me to speak to people and learn from them, so I might just try and do like a mashup of some of the lessons that I've learned.
And I haven't really given you a proper intro, but we first met Marcus in a desert in Peru.
You met Marcus. I've not met Marcus.
No, you haven't met him. Where you were kind of spending the whole race grinning and having an amazing time, it looked like, and I was just moaning about heat and sand and not having such a good time.
You were on a mission. So, I mean, I was there with like a couple of good friends, and yeah, the thing for me was just it was my first one, so I had no expectations. I just wanted to go out and enjoy it, as much as you can enjoy. Going across the desert in a sandstorm, carrying your kit in your back.
I mean, it was a stunning race.
We've
I've never
got
seen.
a picture. We have found a picture on your.
Oh yeah, I haven't even warned you that we stole some photos off your Instagram. So we've got a picture of you, and I know where that picture is. That's at the bottom of. Did we call it the Great Dune? I'm not sure if anybody else called it that, but it was huge, and it was just like. It's so soft, the sand, that every step forward you just slid back down. Like, it was just impossible to get up. But you're grinning, obviously, at the bottom of that. So that was probably the first day I think we went up there.
But that's always happens though when you see the photographer. I mean, all the pain goes away and you spot them and you start smiling.
No, I saw you smiling on every occasion.
That sound was really tough though. You're saying, like the soft bit, and then you sort of learn towards the end that you sort of walk in like other people's footsteps. So,
yeah,
so
I learned that on the dune as well. That was definitely a good tip.
At the top, you're just like, why do you not tell me that at the bottom? So, yeah.
But then the next day we came down there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry.
I feel like we're almost having a personal conversation here. Like we're kind of intruding on some old catch up. We've not properly introduced Marcus.
Yes, no, that was me starting to introduce him and then just waffling on about Peru.
We can talk about Peru at some point. And if people are joining us live on YouTube, you can fire questions across to Marcus, and we'll be asking Marcus questions. But so trying to think of an appropriate kind of title. So you're known as the Marathon Marcus on Instagram. And you have quite a large presence on Instagram. You've got quite a few followers there. You're quite active on there, really kind of great at encouraging people. You do a podcast, you're a marathon runner, kind of bit of trail running, maybe venturing into kind of MDS kind of stuff. And you're kind of really well known for that marathon. Plus, you're a dad, and you work full time as well.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. Yeah.
A lot, and you're based down in London as well.
Yeah.
So,
but in fairness, though, like I find that a lot of the people I meet, on these amazing races, have got a lot going on in their lives as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make myself seem like I'm any more special than anyone else.
But you seem to have a way of kind of sharing your story, don't you? And being honest about it as well. Because your first marathon time kind of, it was, wasn't anything special, but you seem to have caught the marathon bug. So how did the marathons come into your life?
So I started running for a bet to do a 10K. Then I did a couple of 10Ks, half marathons to kind of build up my confidence. And then I went into my first marathon, which was Abingdon. I think I ran about 4:15. I should know this, but I can't remember that time. And then I ran a couple more, but I just did a lot of rookie mistakes. I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm not trying to say that I know 100% now what I'm doing. I think I just know a lot more than I did then. Yeah. I think because you're always learning from each race. So yeah, I kind of got into the butt. Well, it sort of bit me, and I've been trying to. Well, I'm not saying improve, but just kind of get more comfortable with it every time, because it's like this thing that you can't contain type thing. You can't always control it. So and it's a lot of fun sometimes to sort of dive into that and to sort of see how you kind of react to it. Also, at the beginning, it wasn't that fun. But now it's getting a little bit more kind of accepted for what it is. It's getting a bit more interesting.
What year was that you first did Abingdon then?
2008, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah,
and
so
how
quite a while
long
ago.
Was that from when you actually started running? You said that you started with some 10Ks. I mean, was that quite soon before then?
So my first race for 10K was in 2006.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it was a couple of years before I kind of built up my confidence, because it's quite a scary thing. Even at that time, when you're running at 10K, that seemed to me like it seems like a very long distance to run, because when you're running like from like lamppost to lamppost, you've not done anything at school like that. It's everything seems like like gargantuan. Do you know what I mean? Then it just took me a while to kind of get my confidence up to kind of do the halves, and even that you're thinking, wow, I've got to do that times 2. I'm not quite sure. So yeah, it took a lot of I think a lot of steps to get to the full marathon itself.
You kind of alluded there about kind of doing sports at school. Were you sporty at school?
More like football, a little bit of rugby, not so much running so much. And then I went to university, and then just kind of the sports just stopped.
Yeah, I recognise that story.
That's
And then
cool.
you're like, I've still got it. And you sort of try to run and you just like die after like running a couple of meters. Just like, my heart's going to explode.
And were you trying to run like Mo Farah, like completely flat out as well? Like, how hard can I do this run?
Well, in my mind, it probably looked like I was going flat out. But if you're watching it, it just looked probably like a slow motion. What's going on there? But even when you're running a marathon at the end, you sort of think you're going full out, and you're just like, no, it's still coming.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a lot of people when they start 10K running that they either kind of stick at 10Ks for quite a while or do 5Ks. So how come did you go from 10Ks to marathons in 2 years? Was it just the challenge of the event?
Yeah, it's more the challenge rather than the time, because I didn't have a running watch for quite a long period of time. I don't even in my first London marathon in 2010. I didn't have a running watch or a train with a running watch. I was just basically using my phone to, I think, work out the mileage and whatever it was. So I wasn't really doing it for trying to get fast. It was just more the accomplishment of just doing the marathon and what that represented. I think that was at a time when, I don't want to sound old, I'm not that old, but I think when marathons seemed to be quite impressive when you told people at work. Now no one really cares. Like, well, I do a marathon before I came to work. All right.
And what was it about doing the marathon, or how had you been inspired to do that? Was there people that you knew that had run marathons, or was it something else?
Probably most likely the London Marathon, watching it on the BBC. I think was probably the big inspiration, because I think before you looked at marathons and thought, oh, those people don't look like me. Just obviously from colour point of way. I know people say, yeah, but you've got like, the Ethiopians and Kenyans, but I'm not. That's not where I'm from. I don't relate to those guys as runners. So, you sort of someone from London that I could sort of relate to. So, it just sort of took a while to kind of get into it. And then I saw, like I said, the London Marathon, and I was really inspired by the people that I saw, just like everyday people running for causes close to their heart. And you thought, wow, if they can do it, then why am I limiting myself to not doing it? Then you go for it, and you're like, wow, this is something else.
But it's quite a kind of bold step to take, though, isn't it? As well, like that kind of, to challenge yourself, to step up.
Scary.
Yeah. So did you have? So your first one, did you have a plan? Did you follow a schedule, or did you just kind of go, just run as and when?
I think I tried to follow stuff online, and because I'm quite an independent type person, so it's more like I'm going to do it my way. And also there was a kind of naivety as well, of running thinking, oh, coaches are for other people, not for me, type thing. So I never thought I was, that was for me. So I was just trying to do it myself. So I kind of, fumbled my way through it, and did all the rookie mistakes, got injured, didn't really. But then you don't know what you don't know. And I think when I started working with my coach, obviously later on, then it kind of helped just get to where I needed to do quicker than obviously doing it by myself.
So what were the sort of mistakes that you made? Was it just training too fast, too much?
So all those things. Yeah, so I tried to run run faster than the day before, not really respecting fueling. I know some of the old school runners would be like, well, I took some water and I ran a marathon. But
a glass of red wine even.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just tried to run everything too quickly, didn't really respect the fueling, didn't really understand the differences of training, the different types of zones that you run in. And yeah, I think I was more brute force than anything else. So it got me so far, but then, the marathon exposes you, not in a horrible way, but it just shows you where your weak points are. And at the time I wasn't quite mature enough to kind of see what it was teaching me. I just thought, if you do this, then you'll conquer it. But even now, you'll never conquer the marathon. Like, as fit as you can be, and you can do all the work, you can never go into it like 100%, be like, I've so got this. You might be like 90-something% because your training's gone well, but there's always that 10% you're like, okay, I'm going to respect what's going to come up. So, but I mean, I don't regret it. I mean, I went into it, I wanted to do the challenge, and for me, that's what it was about, really.
So how did you feel after you finished?
The first one was just amazing. You just had that amazing runner's high, and you're just like, wow, I did that. It's like the thing that scared you, that you've done it, unfortunately, I don't have many photos from that first marathon, but I think there's one photo I did have. I was in my football kit.
I was going to say, we've had some
sides.
great ones. I think we had Lizzie Hawker and her describing her first race, and there wasn't a piece of running kit there. So yeah, that sounds great.
No, there was nothing running about. It literally looked like I was a sub from a five-a-side.
Shin pads.
Jumped on, yeah.
Just in
Mine
case.
was shin pads and shoes, but I didn't have the right running shoes, and yeah, it was just obviously the right running shoes. I mean, that's obviously depending on what person you speak to, really. So that's another topic. But I looked like a football player.
Brilliant. But was there any point during that first marathon you can remember you were just like, did you ever kind of go, what am I doing this for? Or were you just kind of just, you sound to me very kind of explorative and inquisitive about how you're feeling, your emotions. So were you just kind of enjoying that opportunity to explore yourself?
I mean, that's an interesting question you ask it, because like, it's like trying to go back into the past to remember where you were and not cloud it with your thoughts of where you are today.
Yeah.
And if I try to go back, I mean, I can only give a really limited answer, but I was so fearful. I remember being so nervous because you just don't know what you're going into, the build-up. You've got those nerves and you start it. You don't really know what you're doing. You're just kind of going by feel.
Yeah.
And everything is new. You're running further than you've ever done in training, so everything is new, and it's just the new emotions of the physical discomfort, all the emotions of just the mental challenges of the chatter going, what are you doing? This hurts, stop. Like you think, oh my gosh, you're 18 miles. Whereas before you'd be like, oh, 20 odd miles left. Whereas I think I just looked at it in a different way. I wouldn't say a negative way, but just trying to complete it, and it just been overwhelming. You're trying to like eat this massive meal and like, you know, you're not breaking up. Whereas now I kind of look at it slightly different. I try to break it into smaller chunks. Whereas then it was just very overwhelming and just everything's, you know, experiencing it for the first time.
But then you did it again. Like, how soon did you sign up for your next one?
I think it was probably the following year, and that one was I think I ran that slower, but I never really kind of improved because I was just really going by sort of brute force and not really respecting the process. And like sometimes people say to me now, like, oh, what are you training for? And I don't want to come across like I'm being arrogant, but you're always training, you're always in some sort of state of some sort of cycle. Whereas before I was just like, oh, I'll just run for 3 months, 4 months, then I'll stop and I'll get back into it. And that's what I was doing. I was making a lot of those, I say mistakes, but I just didn't know any better. I thought you could just jump into it 16 weeks. And just kept repeating the cycle of pain so often, and you think at some point you've got to learn, but it's like no, just keep trying to like force it through. Like you kind of think like I'm gonna dominate this thing, but it's not something you dominate. It's something that really humbles you, and I think it took me, you know, a long time for me to kind of really respect the distance and to take it a bit more seriously.
And were you doing all that on your own, or did you have kind of a running club or friends that were runners at the same time?
Yeah, so for me when I grew up, I mean, running wasn't really that encouraged. It wasn't something that my friends did or my parents were into. So I know people would say like, oh, it's a running club and things like that, but it wasn't something that was part of my my background and something I didn't really feel comfortable doing because this wasn't something I grew up doing. So even now it's kind of, I still kind of don't really, you know, run within a running club. I've got people I run with and do tempo runs and, you know, I've got a coach and things like that, but it's, at the time I just didn't have that help and that access really.
So how soon was it then when you said you got a coach, so how soon was it that you decided then that a coach was the solution maybe to kind of stop doing the self-harming and maybe kind of definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again, isn't it, with the same result? So kind of breaking out that cycle, what point did you go, a coach is what I need?
Okay. So probably my first London marathon, I'll probably give a bit of a build up. So my first London marathon, I ran it in 4:55 and I made like all the mistakes that you could do. I mean, I was, you know, it's like when you first run on the marathon, like so busy, congested, and I was just dodging and weaving, sprinting past, and I just blew up spectacularly, and I just paid for it for the rest of the marathon. And then towards the end of the year, I got a place to run in Berlin, and this is the time when you could just enter Berlin, just like first come first serve. not like how the majors are like now. It's just absolutely crazy to get in.
Yeah.
And I got a place there, and I was trying to break sub 4, and I ran, I think, 4:04. And I remember the sub 4 pacers passed me, and that just broke me. And I was just like, I just couldn't shake it. I was just like, it just broke me, and I just got to the end, 4:04. It's still a big jump from 4:55 down to 4:04.
Yeah.
And at the time, I hated running. And in reflection now, it's not that I hated running. It's just that running revealed something about myself that I needed to work on. And I just didn't really realise it at the time because I was just trying to chase these goals and trying to chase the next thing. And after running Berlin, I actually stopped running for several years because I needed to kind of do some work myself and just work out why I was kind of... I mean, running was another aspect of me just trying to overachieve, trying to keep doing things to do more. I mean, we all kind of... I can't speak for other people, but the way I was sort of brought up was to kind of like, you've always got to be on it, you've always got to be grinding, you've always got to be working. It's these things that you can control. And the running and the marathon, the first thing it actually showed me, no, you really need to step back and respect it. Obviously, there's other things in life, but I think running, specifically a marathon, like it's such a big thing. So no matter what stadium I feel right now, like I always respect it. So kind of to come back to your question where I got a coach, so I had that period of time, then I came back into running a London Marathon again. I saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, you got that nostalgia again after a couple of years, got back into it, and then I found my coach probably about 2015, 2016, I think it was. I think it's 2016 because it was before I ran Chicago. And yeah, then we've been working together for at least 4 years, I think now, 3-4 years. So it's been a really good relationship, and he's helped me a lot.
Brilliant. So when you was in that kind of period of no running, did you miss running, or did you have so much you were trying to work out yourself at? You didn't, because you talk to a lot of runners like when they get injured or when they have to take time out, and it's almost kind of like they've lost a limb, and a lot of runners fear having to have time off. Did you miss it?
I don't think I really developed a relationship with running properly then. I was just running to achieve the marathon or achieve the medal. I wasn't running because I enjoyed it or I loved it. I mean, you're not going to love running every day, and there's going to be some days you like a lot less. But I was running for the wrong reason. I wasn't running for the reason that I am now. And I don't want to come across as arrogant because you're always still learning, you're always still developing. I mean, like where I am now is not going to be where I am later, and you know what I mean. So I think I just needed to spend some time just to kind of go back to why I enjoyed running, and seeing the London Marathon again was really pivotal because you just sort of saw people doing it for something bigger than themselves, for the joy, the enjoyment. And I thought, I really want to try to connect with that thing as opposed to kind of just running the marathon to complete it. For me, it was never about the times, it was just about completing it and getting another medal and just having this sort of horde of marathons. So I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
It's just really interesting because you speak to some runners when they're injured or having to have time off and stuff like that, and they seem almost kind of mournful, or they kind of seem really aggrieved that they can't run. So it's just interesting, to meet a runner who's taken that time out and not been like, I've really missed it. But it's like you say, your motivation for doing the running or doing the marathons was in some respects not always that kind of healthy. So you started working with a coach.
Yeah.
Was it kind of like a complete revelation? A kind of like, wow, this is, was it a very different way to how you'd been running previously?
Yeah, so it was structure and it was a little bit of mindset things as well. And yeah, I mean, what you spoke about before with like runners getting disappointed about injuries and not running, I've gone through those periods as well, but I feel like even with recent injuries, I've learned to kind of manage that a lot better, be a bit more, I guess, balanced about this, where you are in relation to things, and just trying to do the best of what you can and where you are. It's not always easy, but at the time you kind of think it's your everything. But I guess to kind of answer your question about my coach, we kind of really went back to basics in terms of learning about why you run certain paces and how long you run them for, and what the purpose was. I was always asked questions like, why are we doing this run? Why are we not doing this? Why am I not doing more miles? Because the thing is, you look at other people and think, oh, why they're doing 60 miles a week? Why am I not doing 60 miles a week? I could do 60 miles a week. You secretly don't want to do 60 miles a week. You pretend you want to do 60 miles a week. And so, so it was really good to kind of get that understanding, deep understanding, because although you can do it yourself, you know, if you're working with someone, you just get that information a lot quicker. Then if the ratio doesn't work, then you haven't really lost anything, because at least you know one way that doesn't work for you. But, you know, working with my coach has been really good. And even just the mental stuff as well, in terms of just how you see workouts and injuries, and just being able to put things into context. It's like sometimes at the beginning you'd be like, oh, I've had a bad run, so that must mean this or must mean that. But now it's just like you see it in a bigger context. It's like, okay, how did that session go? What factors were involved? How did the week go? How did the month go? What good things did you learn from that? Like today, I did a run today. If I had done the same one probably 2 years ago, I would have had a completely different impact. You know, just different thought process about it. But I was able to kind of think, okay, these are things I do really well, and now we parked it and we moved on. So whereas before it'd be like something you'd be like, oh, but it doesn't mean like I don't care about the workout. It's just like you can't hold on to these things, because the same thing is like if something goes really well and you hold on to that, you know, they're kind of like both imposters really, like the good and bad. You just really have to now, you just have to do the best with where you are right now.
Yeah, definitely. So if there's some weird sighing or snoring, we have Sherlock,
the beagle,
in between us, who you're grateful that you can only hear him, because he rolled in fox poo earlier this morning and he still stinks, even though he's been in the bath. But if there's some sighing and snoring going on, it's not me and Jen zoning out. It's just the beagle between us, who's kind of getting himself comfy a minute ago. So sorry, I lost my trail of thought there.
So getting back to your kind of marathon journey, we've got that you kind of had these horrific ones or not so great ones. You took some time out, but then you came back and started working with a coach. So how did those times come down to what we know that you can do now? And what period of time was that?
Gosh, that's a good question. So there was quite a period of time. So I think from about 2017 onwards, things started to improve, I'd say. So I was getting down to like the low, 330s, and then working my way down to kind of sub 3. It took me a while to get to sub 3. So I broke sub 3 last year. But I mean, it's only now we look back, you join the dots, that you actually realise how all those experiences and all those races helped the runner that helped me break sub 3. So for example, when I ran like Boston Marathon 2018, the weather was horrendous.
Oh, I think we found a photo of you running in some horrendous rain and assumed it was Boston. We're putting that up on the screen now. You won't be able to see that, but we can see you there.
So that really helped with running Dorney Lake last year, because it was really windy and raining. And even like running London, and you know, the first time I ran London, I felt weak, because like you get these thoughts that go, stop, you can't do this. And then at that time, I was just like, okay, you must be right. But now, when the thoughts come in, and especially in the races, not all the time, but you can just, you entertain it a little bit more. You're just like, okay, cool. So you think this is what the case is, and then you just have a little bit of back and forth. Sometimes you can just shut it down. Sometimes you just have to let it stay there. It's like a guest coming to your house, and you're just like, okay, give them some drink. They'll leave soon. Do you know what I mean? And then they leave, and you're like, okay, cool, good to go. So, like, all those marathons and all those races, like now I can look back and be like, even the ones that really sucked, I'm like, actually, I've learned so much from them. And it's funny when people go, oh yeah, but you look so strong and you do all this sort of stuff now. That wasn't something I didn't read a book and be like, oh, now I'm mentally strong. Do you know what I mean? It's just like all the experiences and all the training as well. I think that helps make you just a lot stronger. I mean, for me, but some people get it quicker. But for me, it just took that period of time to get where I am now, and I'm still learning, and it's still going, and it's still an ongoing thing. So.
And you're talking about how your motivations had changed, but obviously, like we're like, woo, you got your sub 3 marathon and things, but that must have been a goal for you, or are you saying that wasn't the main goal, and you had other reasons for doing the race?
So it's a good question. So I think time goals are really good, but at the same time, they can't be your main why, because it's going to sound really wishy-washy. I just want to give some context, because if your goal is just a specific time and you're training that time, potentially you could be limiting yourself to how fast you could go. So you have to have the goal in mind, but not be like, that is my everything type thing. So I had that in mind, but then you're still thinking alongside that, every day I'm just going to go out and run my best and see what my best looks like and see what happens. And then it's these kind of two paths sort of concurrently going along the line, and then once you get closer to the marathon, you know, if you're trying to work to be better, then you're trying to work towards this goal time, and then you kind of see where you are. Sometimes, like, just letting things happen as they go, as following the program, you might be further along. So it's kind of a balance between being like, this is my time goal, but then obviously let's just see how good I can be. Sometimes you might be further ahead than you think you are. You just have to kind of check back and just run what that is. But I think you have to have like different whys, you know, for different days. I mean, every day you're not going to get out of bed thinking, I can't wait, like, you know, sub 650 pace. I mean, like, I can't wait to do that today. Or I mean, sometimes it's cold, it's tired. That's just not enough motivation, you know.
Yeah.
We've all been there. You get up in the morning, go training. I think for me, some of the hardest ones are the runs after the workouts, because like your legs are just like dead, and in the middle of winter it's cold. It's like, oh man, those are the tough ones. So you have to have a different why for different days. And,
Yeah.
I think that's okay that they can change as well. I don't think they stay static. I think because you know you change as a person.
Yeah. So,
but also you've got to enjoy it though.
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, that's a key motivator, isn't it? Especially as you say in the winter, still trying to find the enjoyment and the fun in it. But so you ran 4:15, but was there a certain point then when your coach said to you, "Look, Marcus, I think 3:30 is definitely on the cards," and then was it kind of the way the training was developing in something like maybe what certain tempo runs you was doing? You could see your pace coming down, and certain efforts that you actually were then starting to think, because a lot of people will tend to either just pull a number out for the marathon, or will then just kind of go, well, this is where I'm probably as a runner, and that's gonna, you know, 3:30 is my kind of stable point. That's where I'm going to go. But to kind of like take an hour and a quarter off, and well, even more than that, and go sub 3, that's really kind of exciting in that kind of time period. But there must have been a point where your coach must have said to you, I think you can definitely do 3:30, or I think you can definitely, or was that something you were discovering for yourself?
It's a really good question, actually, about just other people's influences and how it can either push you forward or limit you. So before talking about my coach, I had a coach before, I think, a very short period of time, and he got me to do this training fitness thing, and he worked out, he's put his stuff in a spreadsheet, went, print it out, and went, okay, based on your times, you should probably run like, your maximum would be like a 3:15 marathon, or 1:40 half, and these sort of times. I was like, okay, cool, that's my limit. And then I started working with my coach, and he remember he see me run, and he was like, I think you could run like way under 3 hours. I was like, what? Like, what are you drinking? Are you smoking? So I was thinking about my old coach and thinking 3:15 was my limit.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really cool that, you know, you meet someone that sees something in you that you don't see in yourself. And he's kind of like helped sort of take that limiter off. I'm not saying I've gone completely crazy. I'm like, I'm going to be doing, you know, I don't limit myself. I mean, saying something completely ridiculous, but sometimes we can limit ourselves and we just need to dream big. And it's like something like Patty Dillon, I spoke to in my podcast, first woman to break sub 2:30 in a marathon. And one of the things that she says, encouraging people is like, just dream bigger. Because even when she was competing, she's like, there's things that I did that limited myself. I just think that's why I go back to like what I talked to you before about having the time goal, but also being in the moment to be like, how good could I be?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about pushing that needle further forward as well. I think, you know, rather than kind of being limited by the time, because when you think about the times, they're kind of arbitrary type things that, you know, when we think about like, why is sub 3 important? If you think about it, well, why is that important? If you go back to the marathon distance, like, why is it 26.2? Because obviously, you know, the London Olympics, because, you know, the royal family want to see us run that 285 yards, when before it's like 26 miles or 25 miles. And all these sort of things that we do without really asking why we're doing it. So sometimes it's about being able to sort of take that away and just be like, how good can I be? And I think that's basically what my coach has got me to be. Think about it, it's like, well, actually, no, you were really limiting yourself there. Not in a negative way, but you could be so much further than you're thinking is allowing you to be.
But that must have been quite motivational as well, though, to have a coach to say that not like we're kind of saying it's good to, we always want our egos inflated, but that must have kind of put a bit of a spring in your step for a couple of weeks, or even when you start hitting the hard sessions. Were you using that as a motivator, or were you just kind of like that kind of helped you in that relationship if he has this kind of idea of what I could potentially be doing?
Motivation one is a tricky one, because obviously anyone can gas you up and tell you you can do this or you can do that, but ultimately training is down to you.
Yeah.
And the results speak for themselves. You can blame other stuff, but you've still got to do the work.
Yeah.
Like you could tell me like, Marcus, you could run a 2:10 marathon. And I'm like, okay, great, but I still got to get off my chair and put that motivation to the side and actually got to do the work.
Yeah.
When it really is uncomfortable and I don't want to do it. So it's great that, for me, it's great that someone believes in you.
Yeah.
And then I think it definitely unlocks something in myself, because you have to have that drive and that will to want to do it. And, it's kind of helped re-unlock something that was in me, because before, like I said, I was in the marathon, but I was kind of really harsh on myself. I was like, I'm weak for having these thoughts. Like, you should not have them. But actually, the weakness is not having the thoughts. It's just like thinking that's the truth. You're just like, actually, this is a complete lie. Like even stupid things like I do, like say if I'm running and it's really windy, I just have these games with myself. I think, it's like I'm like a sieve, and like just pick up your legs, and it sounds ridiculous, but like you do realize actually you stop thinking about the resistance and you just start trusting yourself a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's all the kind of the mental sort of things that work. It's not like a mental tips tricks type thing. It's just being like, actually, I'm good enough. I belong here, and I have what I need for right now. I might have to slow down a bit, but I've got what I need for right now. I think that's what my coach helped me kind of unlock within myself. And like, someone can unlock it, but you have to walk through that door and do the work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's so true. And that kind of, it sounds like if you come across the chimp paradox, the Steve Pete, so that kind of, I love your analogy of talking about a guest coming in the house and you just having to kind of give them a cup of tea to kind of pass a button, and then the guests leave, because it's so true. And so like when you did Peru, was that a different mindset then, or because like Jen was saying, you were kind of grinning away, obviously enjoying being kind of running around the sand dunes of Peru and on the beach? Was that mindset the same there, or was it more just, this is a great opportunity, look at where I'm being able to run at the moment?
You make it sound like it was like Baywatch, right?
It was like, what happened? You and John would shoot off, and then I'd catch you up a bit later, and then just you'd be having like the best time ever, and I'd be like, I just want this to end.
Oh my gosh. I think for all of us, like John and Jill as well, like we kind of committed that we were going to finish it together. So you were strength for numbers, and then you have the periods of time where you know that someone's going to be stronger and someone's going to be weaker, and you all kind of like help each other. And John was really good at it as well, just kind of completely rookie doing that, just being there to be like, okay, remember to have your drinks, remember to have your salt tablets, these kind of little things. And these little stage things that you do help kind of break down the big distances. But at the same time, one was in Peru, and you probably noticed as well, like when you're, because I'm running in London, you're running in this sort of concrete jungle type thing, and it's just like everything feels on top of you. But when you're in Peru, it's like, wow, like this is incredible. Like I am part of something so much bigger, and like you just can't help but be in awe of just where you are, and it's just like absolutely incredible. So even though there were moments where it's really difficult, it's like tough, like with the sandstorms and stuff, when you stop and think this is incredible. And the funny enough, actually, when we finished it was actually quite sad going back to like regular life and having to like get your phones and do stuff, because it was such a simple way of life. Like you like the night before, you prepared your kit, you had your dinner, you knew what you were doing in the morning, you got up, you prepared your kit, you went, and it was just like a really nice way to live, a simple way of just stripping back all the unnecessary stuff and just going back to like why we run and just being a part of nature, and something that you don't always get to do running in life. So like for me, I really enjoyed it because I just completely took the time element away. But saying that though, there was one incident where it's going to make you laugh actually talking about time. I got a time penalty because someone chucked their bottle of water in my tent, And like if you've got extra bottles, then you get penalised. And I was just like, I was looking at the times going, how the hell am I 30 minutes down? So thankfully it got sorted out. But that was the only time I got like my competitive bit came out.
Did you kick off?
The rest of the way, yeah. Hold a second, because I think no one likes to be called a cheat. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
The injustice of it all.
Yeah.
The injustice. Do you ever fancy doing any more multi-stage racing? Do you fancy the full MDS or something like Cape Wrath or some of the Ultra X?
Yeah, definitely. I think I want to do the full MDS. I want to do some others, but the way that I look at it is I kind of want to give... Running is such a funny thing. Everyone thinks, oh, you just do a mile, you do a 5K, you do a 10K, a marathon. You just switch between distances. You can do it, but for me, I feel like I want to be able to look back and be like, the marathon distance, I gave it my best shot. And then once I feel like I've got to kind of the place where that is, then I kind of want to take that forward into the ultra. Because I feel like obviously the training, because to do an ultra or the trail races, you need to be strong, not just physically, but mentally. And you just need to have those years of training behind you. And I think sometimes people jump into it too soon because they're quite enthusiastic, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just like trying to respect the process and being like, to have longevity, you kind of need to respect the process. So I kind of want to do my thing in the marathon, then I want to move into the ultras. I kind of wanted to go into it a bit sooner, but it's just, this is life, it's taken me a bit longer than I wanted to kind of get to where I'm the marathon. I still got some goals that I want to achieve in this distance, and I kind of want to stick with that first. But there's so many temptations, like to run other races. You're just like, oh, I so want to do it, but you know that how awkward that conversation could be with you and your coach. You're like, I want to do this. It's like, you said you want to do this.
I mean, it's a conversation we have with lots of our athletes, and we kind of almost feel a bit bad kind of cutting people's race calendars down for you, especially for ultra marathons, because you just can't, how long it takes to recover from a marathon, ultra marathons. So what's your, are you able to say what your goal is with a marathon? What's your ultimate? Is it 2:10? Are we talking 2:10 there? Or maybe
around 2:10 questions would be asked.
That connection with Dr. Ferrari, hey?
Yeah, exactly. Some doctors and some, I don't know. I think at the minute I want to get a London Championship place. So for me, like I said, London Marathon has been like such a big part of my marathon journey and just like a narrative. So to go from 4:55 to then owning a good for age place, one is amazing, and that's amazing for me. And the next stage is trying to I'm working to earn a championship place. It's dropped quite a bit of time, so since obviously with COVID and getting more competitive. So for me,
that's the dog. Sorry,
it's not us. It's just a beagle.
I'm so sorry. That's the dog.
Talking about running again in the house, and he gets like, oh, here we go.
That's hilarious. The championship place is my next aim. But then you know what it's like as runners, you're like, oh, I'm only 2 minutes away from there. Maybe I can push it further. But at the minute, I'm not looking beyond the championship place, and it's taking some time and some effort to get to it, because you do some tempo work and you think, wow, that was good. It felt hard, and man, I've got to do that times 2 plus more. It's just it's going to take some time, but I'm up for the journey.
And how did COVID and all the race cancellations affect your plans? Were you halfway through training for something when March and the lockdown struck last year?
So the original aim was to run the London Marathon last year. Obviously, for the right reasons, it was postponed. And then I was looking at other races, and then Dorney came up. And so that was kind of my main focus towards the end of last year, which was really good. But like everyone at the start, you kind of a little bit lost, because you're taking away some of your motivations to run, and then you're having to really kind of dig deep into kind of why you're running. I remember I had one particular session, and mentally I'm just like, what am I doing this for? You ask yourself those questions, you stop. And I think sometimes when you're doing a session, I don't want to say suffer is the right word, but you have to be in the place to be like, I'm going to go into the well and stay there.
Yeah.
And I started running, I was just like, put my foot in the well, I was like, nah. And I stopped, and I was like, nah. I was just like, okay, cool. And sometimes it's okay to stop and be like, just stop that session, go home, think about it, talk to your coach, talk to people around you, and just kind of get yourself thinking in a better mind frame to kind of come back and attack it. And then after that session I stopped, you don't lose too much. And then I went the next one, I was absolutely fine. So I think that's an important thing especially during like the COVID thing. And also another thing about COVID as well, I recently did a half marathon. Obviously it's going to affect people in different ways, but I had my second jab, and some people had different effects, the first and second. The first jab I was fine, second jab I was in a half marathon, and I think like 3 days beforehand it literally just knocked me out. I just felt like I'd been run over by a truck, and like even easy runs felt really difficult. And you know what, like us runners are like, we're just like, we're gonna do it. Have you seen like the sketch The Black Knight in Monty Python?
Oh yeah.
Arms off, like,
just for a scratch.
Yeah. You got no arms, you got no legs. I'm like, I'm fine, come back here. Like, So that was me basically lining up for the half marathon. I was just like, I'll be fine. Then the first mile was like, this is going to be a hard day. You suffer through it. So I got through it and I did it. And then, a couple of days later, I felt back to normal. But I mean, I would just encourage anyone. I always take my advice. Just like, listen to your body. My body was telling me not to run. I was like, no, I will run. I will get through this.
Yeah, you're kind of saying about having experience of suffering for the marathon. That's definitely an opportunity and an experience to say this is what full suffering. It's like if I can suffer that half marathon post jab, then the marathon's going to be an absolute breeze. So have you got a marathon lined up to?
Yeah, so London this year. So
that's in October this year.
Yeah, October this year, and actually this Saturday I'm taking part in the Meet the Experts panel. So we'll be talking about like beginner and sort of advice for beginners. We'll be talking about my first marathon, just basically everything that I would advise you not to do.
It's fine. You make the mistakes so that everybody else doesn't have to.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, but it's just learning, and also I just want people to enjoy it.
That actually leads into one of the questions that we've got from YouTube. So one of the live listeners, hi Keith, he says, hello Marcus, I'm an African American trail runner here in SoCal, I'm assuming that's South California. How do I get involved in what you're doing? So what's that sort of advice for people listening in and wanting to suffer as much as you do in the marathons?
Hi Keith, so thanks for joining in. So I'm not sure if he's sort of asking whether he wants to get into trail running or into the marathon running.
It kind of is, yeah, I think it's kind of that trail running.
Okay, so I'm one of the co-founders of a group called Black Trail Runners, and we set up we're soon set up as a running club, but we've also set up as a charity. And you can find us on Instagram and kind of follow what we're doing. Some of our team members recently ran the Ramsey Rounds.
I saw that.
Basically,
amazing.
Yeah, they did a great job there, and just get involved with us on Instagram. We've got a Facebook group, and we're just trying to encourage people to get involved. And I know one of the big sort of things that come up is like you said, black in the name, is people going, well, that's not inclusive, blah blah blah. White allies, whatever, like you're all welcome to join. The whole point is that it's just creating a space for people who don't feel represented to be part of something, and the whole idea was for it to kind of not be a thing and actually disband and actually just be a running group, because most running clubs are generally focused towards kind of the white kind of runners. If I think when we spoke to you about, you said to me, did you want to join a running club? I was like, well, when I was younger, I didn't even think that was an option for me.
Yeah.
So we kind of want to change the narrative and hopefully get to the stage where everyone feels like it is a space for them, and then they can we can sort of remove the title and just kind of move forward. That's kind of one of the things that we get back to us. But like I said, like it's a group for everyone to feel welcome and just encourage people that aren't represented to feel like it's a space for them. It's not in the sense of like you can't get a train ticket to go to wherever and run. It's more the fact that sometimes if you don't see yourself doing something, it's quite hard to do something. So, for example, when I did like the World Marathon Majors, like it's not right for me to turn around to people, but I just figure out how to do it. I did it, you do it. Sometimes people can't do that. Do you know what I mean? You need other people to feel safe to do that sort of thing. So, I think I've gone on a big round of it, but the whole point is to get involved with us, and all obviously black, white, whatever, just get involved, and everyone's welcome to kind of make everyone feel welcome in the trails.
That's great.
Brilliant. Yeah, because there is that. Yeah, kind of at times you look at entry fields and people doing, especially ultra marathons, there's not a huge amount of diversity in the sport, is there, unfortunately? And the trails are there for everybody, aren't they? And an amazing place to go running. But if you've not had that opportunity, like you're saying, like your childhood, of being given that opportunity to explore stuff like that, then you guys are encouraging people and giving way means and ways of doing it. So cool. So hopefully Keith, I think somebody else's Conscious Gears reached out to Keith as well, who's based out in Arizona. So I'm sure they might be able to hook up, and always leave a comment on the YouTube channel or get in touch with Marcus on Instagram and find out. But I'm sure there's probably similar groups out in America as well, so you can kind of connect into.
And
we've got American members as well, so
cool.
They're free to join us. Yeah.
I just wanted to just because we're running out of time, but chat about your podcast, because it seems like you kind of spent a lot of time not running, and then suddenly running becomes this huge thing, and you've now done like 100 episodes of A Runner's Life. So how did the podcast start?
I think it's just like the runner mindset, isn't it? You think, I'm going to start something, and then to commit to it for several years and see what happens. So for me, it was just more the fact of what I said, I'm going to start a podcast because I like, having conversations. There's a way to connect with people and a way to learn from people as well. And I thought, okay, if I give myself a time scale, then I'll commit to it every week. And it's kind of snowballed on. So I never really started thinking, I'm going to get to 100 and whatever. It's just more like, let's do it for a year and see how it goes. I think at the beginning I tried to do too much, and then I scaled back a little bit more. But the conversations have been amazing, and you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn about your filler words and the things that you use between when asking questions, which is really annoying when you're listening back to yourself.
I hate listening back. I never do.
I hope you're not taking notes on our filler words.
It's not amazing. Stop saying it's amazing. It's not amazing.
So, I mean, I would describe your podcast as having quite a broad mixture. It's kind of got elite runners, but it's got some just what we'd look at as ordinary runners. It's got runners with a story. Is that how you set about with the podcast, just getting that mix?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I don't want to sort of, be too simple about it, but the idea was to talk about a runner's life.
Yeah.
So my Instagram page, I talk about what my feelings of a runner's life means to me. And I wanted to speak to a wide range of people. So just to sort of show listeners that, like, regardless if you're elite or you're not elite, the reasons why we actually run are fairly similar. Because it makes us feel good, it makes us feel connected, it makes us feel grounded, and it has such a big impact on our lives when you take out time to feel that. Obviously, I can bear in mind that there's people that are running competitively, so it's a different thing. There is the fun, but then there's a serious aspect that they have to hit certain times to do certain things to get sponsorship money and whatnot. So it's not, just kind of like sort of circle of love where we're all holding hands and we're all running into the sunset. But I try to sort of show like a different side of running, that I just want people to feel like it's a space for them and be connected in a wider way. And I just learned so many lessons from people. And a lot of the questions I do ask aren't really sort of focused on. Some of them are technical episodes. Like, for example, I've done sub 3, the championship ones. I've talked about nutrition, mindset, some things that I really want to know. But generally, they're just about running and life and how those two kind of things intersect together and how we take lessons from both. And you just, sometimes you sort of come into it thinking, I see things from a certain way, and then you speak to someone else and they show you something completely different. You think, I didn't think of it that way. So for me, it's an amazing learning experience, and I just love the conversations I have with people. You always learn something from everyone you speak to.
And kind of teenage you, would you have ever looked in the future and seen that you were doing a podcast about running and having it as such a central part of your life? Was it ever anything, a goal then?
I think you put the podcast to one side. I think also doing the podcast as well, the same as running, was doing something that scared me. So although people might say, oh, you speak quite confidently and you come across like this, I had this thing of just like sound my voice and speaking in public and like that. So I was like, this is ridiculous. So it's just about also doing something that scared me. And then the more you do it, you actually realise, okay, my voice sounds like that. No, it's fine. Just get over it. Or you do like a podcast episode. I did a podcast episode with someone, and I was so nervous. And I remember fluffing something, and they gave me a critique at the end. And although you feel like, oh my gosh, like whatever, you're just like, no one died.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, just do the next one. So like, I don't feel like whatever, but I just feel like everyone I speak to, I just think they're just a person. They've got up, they've maybe had some challenges today, something's happened. You're just speaking to a person, and I just try to think of it in that way and just having a good conversation. But so it's helped me a lot, really, just to kind of get over my own fear, get out of my own way, and lots of things like that in life. I think it's so cool just to do things that, up to a point, just go, not recklessly, because obviously you've got to go to work, do you know what I mean? But you've got to do some things that kind of push your boundaries, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Definitely. Talk about that kind of interact with. What about, does your family, I mean, obviously your kids, one of them's only 17 months, so, but does your 3-year-old, do they kind of join in with the running? Does your wife run as well? Are you kind of, is it like a running family, or is it actually this is just daddy's hobby, kind of, in inverted commas?
Yeah. So my wife is probably more like a team sports person, and I'm more like a lone wolf kind of thing. So I can do team sport, but I prefer my own space. So like for me, like running and that kind of thing is perfect. So
yeah.
She supports me in that. The kids are quite young, and for me, I'd never want to be like trying to force them to be like a mini version of me, because they're not. They're their own people. I'm just helping them find their way for what they want to do in their life. If they want to run, they run. You know, when I go out to the park with my daughter and she runs, you know, that's fun, and I try to make it fun as possible. I remember probably like a couple of months ago, my daughter said to me, "Oh, Daddy, why do you run?" And like, if you asked me why I run, I'd give you some sort of like answer that maybe potentially trying to impress you, or an ego-filled answer, or whatever, and try to be really smart with it. But with like a 3-year-old, you can't be like, well, I'm trying to get a London Champion place, because when I started off this time, like, no one cares. So just like, look, I enjoy running. It really makes me feel good, and just break it down to that kind of level. And I think that was a really cool question to ask me as well then, because I think sometimes you need that frame of reference sometimes to kind of think, oh, am I doing it for the reasons that best put me forward and best serve me?
Yeah, and also, I mean, marathon training and running can be incredibly selfish, can't it? And then can have impact upon the family. And there are times when, you know, when my kids are staying with us and I'm training, I do feel guilty at times. But thankfully mine are now teenagers and kind of
go on their phones and don't notice that you've been out.
Yeah, and almost just accept that's what Dad does. Dad just runs. Yeah. But it is, isn't it? It's difficult, and it is great when they're that bit younger and you can't say, you know, well, because I want to get this qualifying time back, doesn't mean anything to them. But sorry, that's the dog, not me. But they are wonderfully grounding us as well, aren't they? And kind of helping us with our kind of true motivation at times, and kind of keeping our feet on the ground and not allowing us to get too completely carried away with our running aspirations and crazy dreams.
Absolutely. Like when you hear it back to yourself, like my first answer would be like, oh, it's a championship time. But sometimes you actually hear like how ridiculous that sounds. But you're basically telling your kids like, oh, the goal is more important than the running. So that was sometimes like it's really good to have those sort of questions and the answers back at you. Yeah. Kind of make you really challenge actually why is it important. Not saying that championship place is not important, but it can't be your first answer.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Excellent, fantastic. Oh, well, it's been superb catching up with you. So keep an eye out for you getting championships. So all set for October. Is it all going in the right direction? All injury free at the moment? Training kind of on the button at the moment?
It's going well. I mean, I think running is a challenging one. You aim for something. I'm doing my best to get there, but I think ultimately the long runs closer to the time will dictate where I am. So I'm going to do my best to get there, but if I'm not quite there, or I am there, great. If I'm not quite there, then great, because I'll just do my best in the marathon. So, you know, something I've learned with running is you've got to have a lot of patience. Sometimes you don't get to where you want in the time you want. It took me 4 times to break sub 3, so I've got a lot of patience.
At least, you've still got a few more weeks. You've got about 15 weeks So you're not quite on that final 12-week build up.
No.
And you just have to park your half marathon. That isn't an indicator of current fitness at all, is it really?
Well, on one hand it is, because like if you think, like for me, like if the day I felt like a 3 out of 10, and to run the time that I ran as a 3 out of 10, I was like, actually, that's actually not bad.
Oh, right, okay. So it wasn't a complete car crash.
If you reframe it like that, I mean, like, so, like, the time that I ran, a lot of people would say, yeah, that's amazing, and so I mean, I think it's cool, but I never want to come across as big-headed. But the times that you're running and training and stuff that you're capable of, it's kind of, you kind of know where you should be. It's a hard one to have that conversation on social media without coming across like a complete idiot. It's almost like saying to someone like, oh yeah, should be grateful. Remember, now you can walk now. Like when you were a baby, you couldn't walk. It's like, well, I'm not there. I'm here now. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can walk, I can run, I can do stuff. I can drive cars. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant, excellent, fantastic. So yeah, I think. Have you got any questions? So can you give it? So if somebody is lining up for London and they've got a summer of training ahead.
Yeah.
We've kept you for an hour already, so we'll try and start wrapping up. But what one tip? So somebody's kind of say, don't want to kind of spoil all your tips from your talk you're giving on at the weekend. Maybe that's what we should say. Is like if people want some top marathon tips, they should kind of join in on the London Marathon webinar at the weekend, because I was going to ask you if you could share maybe one tip that you would give somebody who's training for London or for their first marathon this year. What would be the one piece of advice would you give them?
So this is a question I ask people on my podcast, like, what's the one thing that you did to get to a certain time?
Throwing it at you this time.
It's not a fair question to ask, because there isn't really one thing. There isn't like one secret. There's no one workout. There's no like one piece of advice to give, like, oh, now I've passed this on to you, I could go forward and do stuff. It's all the little things that all matter, that all add up, like just the consistency. Like life has happened, so sometimes you might not get the right sleep, but you try to do the best you can, try to eat the right things. When you're training, I make sure I practice my tempo runs, practice my fueling, so it's not like a new thing. Like I see people doing faster runnings, like don't do that, because you're trying to get your body used to kind of. If your body gets used to that, it's going to have a different reaction when you go to a race day. And then you try to start giving it carbs. It's going to be like, what's happening here? And you're just going to blow up.
Yeah.
Also, same as like kit. Like when I do my long runs, I tend to wear what I'm probably going to wear on the race day.
Yeah.
So I just wear different versions of that, so you feel comfortable in that. It's just the things that you do during the week, just making sure that you're giving the best that you can, and just trying to be consistent with that, and just being kind to yourself as well. Not being like a Spartan and be like, I must just eat rice, grilled chicken, and then avocado, and some peas, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? I must not like touch like a drop of alcohol, but you just do all things in kind of moderation. Have fun with it, enjoy it, but just make sure you just do the consistent things on a just a consistent basis, and you get there. And just to know that, like, once you get the start line, as much as you think you can plan for all the things that could happen, there was always going to be something that's going to surprise you. Do you know what I mean? And just be aware that when that happens, just to not freak out, just to be like, okay, cool, just take a breath and just be like, okay, cool, what's the best next step? Sometimes it might be like, oh, I've got to slow down, and just, and kind of go forward. Like when I did my sub 3, and I'm giving a very long answer here.
It's brilliant.
I think I was about 13, 14 miles into it, and I started to feel quite sick. Like I thought, okay, what I can either do now is I can stop taking my gels, and I'm going to blow up at mile 20, or I can start taking my gels, keep taking my gels, but sipping them just a lot slower.
Yeah.
And both seem like awful options. But you know what I mean? Like, but I still had to make that decision at that time. Whereas when I look at my training runs before, I was doing 80 miles plus easy. Do you know what I mean? I felt no problems, and things will happen in a marathon that you will test you, and it doesn't mean that you're weak or a failure or anything. I just make the best next step, just process what's happening and be like, okay, cool, what's next? So for me, the nutrition thing was a key example of like what happened in that race, even though I did all these things quote unquote right beforehand.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. We got about 5 tips there.
Yes, superb. Brilliant.
So if we want to follow your next few months of training, where's the best place to have a look at what you're up to? Is that going to be on Instagram?
Yeah, I tried to share stuff on Instagram and on the podcast as well. So I'm not really that active on Strava. I'm probably going to offend a lot of people by saying this. The only person that follows me on Strava is my coach. So I feel like, especially being on social media and people like that, I think sometimes you shouldn't share everything, to be honest. I think you've got to keep some things kind of private to a certain extent. Not that I'm trying to hide the training, because the race result tells you what you need to know.
Yeah.
So you can't deny that. But for me, it's just about kind of keeping that one side of things private. And I tend to then share like my weekly runs anyways on Instagram, and I tend to talk about the workouts that I'm doing, like in rationale. So even though I don't share the exact locations, I still share like what I'm doing. So people who might want to follow or learn from what I'm doing, and want to share information and help me, can sort of get involved as well. I don't have all the answers, so if there's any stuff that people want to share with me, then yeah, feel free to share it.
And what's your handle on Instagram?
Marathon Marcus. So unfortunately, Marathon Marcus was taken by about several people, which is why I had to have Marathon Marcus.
It's not yours, is it?
It's not. No, I didn't. Well, yeah, I took all the Marathon Marcus. I took them all. I took the running Marcus, Ultra Marcus, every single thing. But I just have my own name on my Instagram handle. But yeah, so we'll put links down below.
And your podcast is A Runner's Life as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So if people want to if they've not come across your podcast, then go and have a look at it, go and have a listen to it. It's fantastic. Another one to take on runs, or just to have kind of when you're driving around and however you listen to your podcast. This has been so motivational tonight talking to you as well. And your Instagram I find it so motivational as well, going through it and reading stuff on there. So thank you so much for taking the time out this evening. Brilliant. It's been wonderful chatting to you, and we kind of keep our fingers crossed if we can for London for you, and exciting to see if you get that championship time.
Yeah, I've taken everyone's sort of best wishes, so I'll take on all that energy. So
we're sending it out. We're going to be cheering you on.
Brilliant. And maybe in a few years' time, we'll see you out on some trails in the ultra fraternity
I'll
as well.
see you on a beach in Peru.
Definitely.
Or in the desert at MDS.
I know.
And the Sahara.
Definitely.
Brilliant, Marcus. It's been an
so
absolutely pleasure chatting to you this evening. Take it easy and have a good rest of the week. We'll catch you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, fantastic. What a brilliant interview there with Marcus. And so really kind of encouraging about the marathon as well. Excellent. I've said excellent now. We're probably going to have to go back and listen to some of the words and phrases we maybe overuse, like Marcus was saying he does that. So thank you those who are joining us. Thank you, Antonia and Chris. Glad you enjoyed it, and Jerson as well. Sorry we didn't get everybody's comment in there. It was just a very kind of engaging conversation there with Marcus, and we hope you all enjoyed it. And if you have listened to us on the podcast, please leave a review down the bottom, and if you've enjoyed it on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and click subscribe so you can keep up to date what's happening. And we are back in 2 weeks' time.
We are back in 2 weeks, and that really is going to be our last interview for Wild Ginger.
Oh my goodness me, there we go.
We said it before and then we came back, but that really is our last one.
We did have a second comeback, but this will be our last time. So please do join us in 2 weeks' time for our last interview with a signed beagle. Hopefully it won't be smelling of fox poo, but we hope you've enjoyed this evening. Have a good rest of the week. Stay safe, enjoy the summer trails, and we shall see you in 2 weeks' time.
Take care, bye-bye.
Bye.